Welcome to the Coach Speak podcast, built for coaches, by coaches, hosted by Jamie Bolton and Dustin Martin. Sponsored by Ray Crowther, providing the nation's best athletic training equipment since 1932. And R4 Football Systems. Accelerate everything by decoding the game.
Hey guys, welcome back to Coach Speak. Dustin Martin here with Jamie Bolton. We have a special guest, and if you're on X, you know exactly who we're talking about. We have Coach Tony Shiffman today. He does a lot with the Hog Football Chat, and we're going to get into that in a second. But before we get going, I want to shout out to our sponsors, Team Builder and Tsunami Bar Sport.
Hey guys, today we've got a guy who's been in the trenches, literally and figuratively, for nearly 2 decades, entering year 19 of coaching. He's got experience in high school, Division III college football, and is known for building tough, disciplined offensive lines and a culture that we all would like to be a part of. But beyond the sideline, today's guest is the founder of one of the most impactful online communities. We all know it, Hog Football Chat. It's a weekly soundboard for offensive line coaches across the country. If you've ever scrolled through Twitter or X, you know what we're talking about. And we're talking football philosophy today, program building, O-line culture. And we're going to get into it. But Coach, man, thank you so much for being on.
I appreciate you guys having me. It's 19 years seems like a lot when you say it out loud. It doesn't feel like it's been close to 2 decades, but man, that's a while. But yeah, no, I appreciate you guys having me. Like I told you guys before, seeing a bunch of you guys' episodes. So this is great. I love talking ball with anybody and especially with you guys. So thank you.
Thanks, Coach. Well, yeah, man, let's get into it, man. So let's talk about the birth of Hog Football Chat. Where did that idea come from, man?
Yeah, so I think so. We just wrapped up. I affectionately refer to it as our season, which goes from end of our first Monday after Thanksgiving to the end of July. So we just finished up year 11, which is wild to me. But it started. I can tell you the exact. I can't tell you the date, but I know the day. It was I was at home back in Springfield, Illinois, watching Michigan State versus Baylor in a bowl game. And I was, Twitter was nothing back then. This was 2014 rolling into 15. Twitter wasn't a big thing. People were using it, but it was still kind of like very infant in what it was being used for. And I remember just getting on there and trying to talk some football with people during the game, and stumbled upon this hashtag Texas High School Football Chat and started to kind of comment. And I remember I even reached out to Coach Fisher through a message and was like, hey, I'm not a Texas coach. Is it cool if I still participate in this? Not knowing any better. And he was like, yeah, absolutely, hop on. So started to kind of tweet some things and participate in that for a few months, and then had sort of built a little bit of relationship with Jack Dingus, through that and through some messaging. And we at one point just kind of were talking and said, we should do like an O-line one. Actually, originally it was an O-line and D-line one. And so that was going to be the origins of the Hog Football Chat, was an O-line and D-line chat. And so we talked about it and finally came up with kind of our format and did it. And it was fun. I think I've told this story before. I think the first night there were like 17 coaches on, and it was just awesome talking to those guys and interacting. And then we tried to do a defensive line one like the week after, 2 weeks after, and it was just awful. I mean, it was like there was like nobody there. So we both agreed, we were like, never again. We're just gonna stick to O-line. And it kind of just snowballed from there. I mean, I remember I think the first when we first started it, it was on Thursday nights. And then I think at some point it was on like Friday nights, which was dumb. I don't know. And that might have been like, during February, I guess February through July. It doesn't matter. There's nothing on Friday nights, but I don't remember how it eventually landed on Mondays, truthfully. I want to say there was some conversation with Coach Fisher and with Coach Mack with the Florida High School Football Chat, and we all kind of agreed upon a night. Like there was some gentleman's agreement. I'd have to go back and look through messages, but yeah. So eventually landed on Monday nights, and kind of like I said, just kind of took off. It was never our intent to kind of take off the way it had. We just kind of kept with the consistency, and I always say, coaching as a whole is such a great profession, but the O-line coaches specifically are second to none. I think it's there's been so
Absolutely.
much there's been so much great content shared and relationships built and networking done that it's been awesome to kind of see the growth of the chat over these last couple of years.
Coach, you said Baylor versus Michigan State, correct? That bowl game.
I think so. Yeah.
I think that was when this meme was born. I think the Sean Oaks
is this
meme.
the
That was
yeah.
January 1st, 2015. Like as soon as you said it, I remember this game vividly.
Yeah. That's also
and that's
the
when
game
that was built.
Yeah, that's also the game. I think Baylor, one of the two teams had a huge comeback, and there was the clip of the kicker or the punter getting absolutely murdered.
Yes.
That was the same game.
Yes.
That was
Yes.
that is the Oakland game though. That was I remember that meme. That might have been while I got on Twitter too. Like I saw that tweet come up or something and started to talk about it or comment on it. So yeah.
It's hard when you hear Baylor versus Michigan State not to remember that specific time when all that happened.
Complete meme.
All right, Coach, before we get going, man, I have to hang on. I got to share it again because this is a story I want to hear before we go any further. And I've always had this question, but I'm going to share and zoom in a little bit. All right, Coach, so you got to let us know, what's the story behind this picture? Because I've always seen this. And for those who are just listening, not watching, it's his profile picture on X, and he has blood streaming down his forehead, but you can tell he's in a very high-tense game. There looks like there's millions of people behind him. He's talking to a player, headset on. So, Coach, tell us a little bit about this picture.
All right. So I am I'm a meathead at heart, I guess. And my first year coaching back in 2007, I'm not a big juice guy. Like I've talked about this a little bit. I'm not like a big rah jump up and down juice guy. But it was before the last game of the year, and I was trying to kind of get myself ready to go a little bit as a coach. And we were warming up, as you do in games, offense versus defense. And I grabbed one of our offensive linemen and just kind of headbutted him. And it wasn't, it's never like a super duper hard headbutt, but it's just enough to kind of wake me up. That when I was a player, I always needed the first hit to kind of settle my nerves. And so I kind of gave him a headbutt. I remember looking at my hat afterwards, and there was like a little tiny dot of blood. And I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. And then it became, I had to headbutt somebody before every game. And so there's actually another picture. I'll share it with you guys when we're done. From the year after in 2008 that my dad got. And you can't see it, but I got a nice scar right here. And I headbutted a kid and that thing just split. And so I've got, again, blood all down my face, and I'm smiling, laughing. And so it just became a thing, as an assistant coach. So I never did it when I was a head coach. But as an assistant coach, I would kind of grab a player that I sort of had a relationship with, built a kind of a nice little camaraderie with. So the funny thing is it's never been an offensive lineman. It's always been somebody else. So like that picture was 2016 season at Rossview High School in Clarksville, Tennessee. We were playing Clarksville High School. It's a huge game. It's the battle for the Warfield Shield. So the schools are on Warfield Drive, and they're separated by like a mile. And so it's a big game. And I remember that hit because it was an outside linebacker, and I caught him in such a way on his helmet it was an old Shut DNA face mask. And I caught him in such a way that I hit him and then scraped. And so I didn't know I was bleeding. All I remember, and I think it's actually after that picture, I was because I was like, we went 3 and out. That was the starting quarterback. Like we were the big guy in the picture with me is the offensive coordinator, and I was the O-line coach. And so we were talking to our quarterback, trying to figure some things out. And I remember after I talked to the kid, I looked and kind of into the crowd, and people were staring at me. And one of our school teachers who took pictures was taking pictures of me. And I was like, what the heck's going on? And then somebody came up and gave me a towel and was like, yeah, you're bleeding all over the place. And I was like, oh, whatever. And so wiped my face. And then she shared those pictures a few days later. And I was like, I can't not make this my profile picture. So
no doubt.
Yeah, so it's been my profile picture forever. It's still something I do. Last year, it was with the quarterback. There's a couple pictures online of me kind of in act, and it's not. My wife yells at me still for doing it, but it's just it's kind of my own little magic to calm my nerves surprisingly, and kind of without trying, kind of get those guys fired up a little bit. Because like I said, the juice, I can't be like a juice guy. It's got to be like an authentic bit. And so it's kind of stuck around. And not too. There's a couple other times I've bled, but that one's the best. And then like I said, I'll find the other picture for you guys and share it with you. But yeah, it's just
I don't know
it's
if
been something.
I'm not that tough, Coach.
I'm
I'm gonna have to get I'm gonna have to get Bolton to paint some blood on my forehead for a cool pic. I'm not that tough, man.
Yeah, I never I never go into it trying to draw blood. Obviously, I'm not that much of a psychopath, but if it happens, it happens, and then we clean it up.
Do you ever have like guys like ducking you on the sideline? Oh crap! Here goes Coach.
No, because they know because it's they know because they keep their helmet on. And I don't, like I said, it's with the new helmet technology. There's not there you can avoid the face mask bit. That was the part that used to get me the most was the iron or the steel face mask that kind of stuck out. So now you can get the axioms. You can find the nice flat spot in the front and
you didn't have like the raised. What was like the raised like rubber piece that is like flaking off the face mask? And
right.
Slice you all open, man. Need a cut, man.
That might have been what happened in that picture. That I could have got some
That's awesome, man.
Some shrapnel.
Awesome. Yeah. Sorry to get us off topic. There's a couple interesting things I wanted to learn.
That's good. Well, yeah, Coach. So so we started, this whole thing too for the same reasons. We wanted to have, some sort of platform to impact our own personal development and then kind of share that out. But any threads or moments from the chat that stand out to you as like maybe a big game changer, maybe in your own development, or any feedback that you've gotten from other coaches?
Oh yeah, honestly, a lot of like there was a really good thread we did a couple years ago, and it's the tough part about going for 11 years is you have some retread topics. Obviously, we try to change the questions up, but you have some topics, and one of the ones that really has gotten a lot of traction has not even been about O-line play. It's been about health and wellness. So there was a couple years ago, we had some health and wellness topics, and guys really were jumping in and talking about diet and exercise and things like that. It's kind of funny how it works that way. So there are some guys that really want to get on and kind of only get on when we're talking scheme and X's and O's. But then there's on the flip side, there's some guys that really enjoy talking about the non-traditional football things and more of the actual coaching lifestyle topics. So it's kind of hit or miss. I can always tell early because one of my secrets that I've given out is I don't participate in the chat as much anymore as I used to, just with family and having a baby now and all that kind of stuff. So I tend to plug it in and then kind of let it roll and then kind of catch up as the night goes on. But I can usually tell pretty quickly with the first question if it's going to be a good night or not. So we like I said, we try to keep things kind of mix and match with scheme and every now and again throw in a fun night. But it's crazy how it can, we can have one question about, double teams and then it evolves through the thread into something completely different. So I think there's just, the long-winded answer to your story. I think there's just so much great stuff. Somebody, and I don't want this to sound like an arrogant statement, but I feel like every night we do the chat, somebody's got to be able to get something, whether it's a middle school coach, a junior football league coach, or even we've got every now and again we get a Power 5 or Power 4 group of 5 guy on there. Somebody's got to get something from the chat. And my hope, the original hope with all of this was that just somebody can take something for their own coaching world and put it in their own in their own repertoire for their own team. And so I hope that that's still being done every night with those guys.
Yeah, and I think, I've participated, I think, in maybe, I'd say probably about 10 to 20 of them over the last couple of years. But even when I don't participate, I love reading through people's answers and just hearing their thoughts, because that, like Jamie said, that's a big part with the podcast. We bring different people on just we truly selfishly are learning. Like, we want people we want to hear from and learn from, in hopes that we benefit all those listening. Like you said, whether it's reaching a youth football coach, a middle football coach, or a current head coach at the high school level. We also have followers from the collegiate level. We have a couple of analysts in the NFL. Like, it's a huge, diverse family is kind of how I look at it. And my favorite part of the Hog Football Chat is when everyone does their introductions with the gifts, and it's like what's it going to be today? And I literally will sit there and try to find every single guy, because it's funny, like people sliding in, and then like there's like, I think one the other day there was like a bus full of nuns or something. It is so funny what these guys like do. But no, Coach, I'm right there with you on that.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's great just to see, because I do the same thing. Like, I'll get on there the day after, and obviously I get all the notifications. So it's great to kind of see what people are saying, and after the fact, and kind of talk to them, shoot them a message, especially if there's something that jumps out. Because I used to be the guy, like when I first started it, before I had a wife and before I had a family and all that stuff. I was following diligently. I was liking every tweet. I was participating actively. But that's a hard hour. It takes a toll on you, man, to do it and stay on top of it. So it's I'm a little relieved not having to do it, but I still like to go back through after the fact and kind of catch up on some stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, Coach, I think too, the consistency piece is very, very difficult to maintain, especially when you got a young family. I know me and Dustin, we're filming now at 9, it's 9 our time in the morning, which I actually like prefer morning stuff, but we're usually filming at 10 o'clock at night, and you got to get it out, and especially that we got the season coming up, and man, we're going to try to roll this thing. I mean, our goal is to roll this all the way through the season, but man, I know your group really appreciates the effort from that and that platform. As far as development goes, we're going to go into our next segment and really talk about some trends in OL play. Before we do, we want to give one of our sponsors a shout out. We've been talking about development for coaches and players, especially in the trenches, but we need to really shout out one of the most impactful tools that we've added to our programming at our school, and as the strength and conditioning coach is Tsunami Bar Sports. At first glance, the bar doesn't look like your typical barbell, but that's kind of the point. Once you get it in your athlete's hands, though it changes everything, you start to see guys working with the bar instead of just moving it. That oscillation, it has a reactive force piece to it. It demands a lot of control, and it teaches intent. It forces your athletes to stabilize, accelerate, and decelerate, which is exactly what we need for football movements. We've even seen this with our offensive line play too, where you can, Dustin could maybe talk about this later on too, but like they're like doing the pass sets with the big Tsunami bar and all that. But we've seen it definitely pay off with our offensive linemen. If you're trying to build power out of your stance or stay tight to the contact or finish with force, it's not just about brute strength, it's how quickly we can recruit the right muscles. So if you guys are interested in Tsunami Bar Sports, check them out at tsunamibarsports.com. Our contact is Chad Smith, and so if you're interested, see what they're all about. So going into segment 2, guys, you're the forefront of trench play and OL football stuff, and so what OL trends are you excited about in today's game that you've seen through the chat?
I think just honestly, just there's no real one specific thing. It's obviously there's lots of little pieces. It's not necessarily scheme as it is kind of game style. I think you're starting to see a lot more practice habits changing. It's equipment, pieces of it's not so much. I mean, I remember when I first started coaching, it was hit the sled for 10 minutes a day, or not even hit the sled, drive the sled for 10 minutes a day. And so you're starting to see a little bit changing from that more into one of the things that I've taken over the last couple of years that I love is kind of the use of med balls in practice. So I think you're starting to see a little bit more of that, more so than like actual changing of the game. The terminology is changing a little bit. It's not, again, when I was growing up and when I first started, it was the 6-inch step. That's people kind of, if you hear mention 6-inch step now, you kind of get you get shunned a little bit. So there's the evolvement more so into kind of the modern football, and it's because of, I mean, not to get on my own tangent here, but it's because football itself is evolving, right? It's not the big giant massive guys aren't helpful anymore. It's all about being athletic. It's all about being sleek and moving. And so that sort of has changed how we practice. That's changed how we develop a little bit. And that's kind of the fun stuff to watch, is seeing sort of the non-traditional things that people are doing. I like I said, with the med ball stuff, that was something I saw John Strollo do when he was at Ball State in 2014 or 15, that kind of I wasn't able to do at the time, just because we didn't have the equipment. And so when I finally got a piece, got some med balls and got some things like that, it was great to kind of implement that stuff. The Crowther sled kind of was people had it, but people really didn't know what they were doing with it. And then you see, a couple guys, you see Herb Hand, and you see people like that post on Twitter, and it's like, oh, and all of a sudden everyone wants to reuse the Crowther sled again. So it's been fun to kind of see that and see that developmental piece. As far as like actual O-line, like scheme, or not scheme, but actual O-line like technique, there's not much different. It's still about taking a guy and moving him from point A to point B against his will, and that's the beauty of the position, is that's never going to change. It's always going to be rooted in that, and so it's great to see that guys are still doing that. They're just kind of doing a different way of getting that outcome.
Yeah, and I remember y'all had a question. I think it was late spring or early summer. Was basically one of the questions was, how have you changed your coaching style from when you started to now? And I remember there was a coach that said something like, less fire and brimstone, more teaching. And when I read through that, I was like, man, that's so true. When you first started as a coach, it's like, I'm a PE major, and the first thing they teach you in teaching PE is keep everybody busy. Don't have long lines, and make sure
Right.
everybody's doing something. Well, and then I found out after a couple of years of coaching, it's like, yes, we need to use our time valuably, but like, there's no point in rushing through something or trying to get everybody involved if we're not teaching it correctly. So, taking a little bit more time explaining the drill, but also planning out when is the proper time to teach the drill. And me and Jamie talked about that, like doing it in the spring. Use spring to teach all the drills you want to use in the summer and in the fall. And but I just remember that question popping up, and I read through a bunch of answers, and I saw that, guys. I was like, man, that's so true.
Yeah. Well, and I think Ian had just commented, Coach Tatum just commented about that the other day on Twitter. It might have been after he did the pod with you guys, but he was talking about like, what drills do you do during the week, and exactly like you're talking about there, like get your 10 to 12 kind of drills you like out of the way in the spring, at the beginning of the camp, whenever you want. And then now you can kind of pick and choose, and be a little bit more specific to what the game plan is week by week. But yeah, I think there's the fire and brimstone is that's a great quote. I think there's still a time for it. But I think it's much more impactful when it's not every day. If you're being a coach, if you are a coach that does a great job teaching, if you are a coach that does a great job of explaining things, there is merit to that fire and brimstone kind of coming out every now and again, and keeping your guys, prepared and ready for it. But it's not. I hate the fire and brimstone. I think it's coaches that scream and yell just to scream and yell, I don't think are coaching very well.
Agreed.
Yeah, they're compensating probably for a lack of teaching or lack of knowledge, and so now we got to be overly emotional about everything we do to try to make the kid play harder, and playing harder doesn't always work out. I was a baseball guy in high school, and we had one of our coaches, I remember was like trying to tell me, hey man, you got to do this hitting or whatever. Man, I remember just like swinging harder, and he was like, "Yeah, good job." I'm like, I didn't really listen to anything you said,
Yeah.
man, but
Yeah.
because you're yelling at me about like squashing the bug or whatever,
Yeah.
so I just swung
Well, I
harder, and
think,
then he's like, "Yeah, that's what I'm talking
well, I
about."
think an important part, Jamie, kind of what you just hit on is, as coaches, if you want to be a really good coach, try the normal way that you do things. So, for example, if you are a yeller, you are a screamer, you are a tough guy, try it. But then eventually you have to evaluate, are the people I'm coaching, are they taking that in? Because after so long, if you're not getting any results with the way that you handle things, the way that you have to reevaluate and go, okay, this isn't working. I've been doing it this way for a month, 2 months, 3 months, however long, and I'm not getting the response I need. Maybe we need to reevaluate how we're handling it, how we're communicating it, how we're delivering it. That way we can reach the people we need to reach, because clearly it's not working.
Yeah, I think so too. I think the thing that I think about really is, all right, when do you use the fire and brimstone? Well, I think you got to be super intentional about that. So we talk a lot about like alignment, assignment, and technique on offense, and that's how you execute. Well, any kind of emotion involved in that really needs to enhance those three things. It needs to be used to make you hyper focus on the things that you need to focus on, but you don't need to go outside of those three things. Alignment, assignment, technique are going to equal execution, but using emotion, using some fire for a kid to motivate him to focus on those a little bit more, I think is more appropriate.
Yeah. I mean, I can remember when I first started coaching, I always used to tell myself and tell people when they talked about coaching, like, well, I'm going to coach the kids like I want to be coached. Well, that you can't do that anymore. You've got to evolve, and you've got to, as kind of like in the classroom, every kid's different. You've got to be able to reach every kid and get the most out of them. And that's not going to be some of those guys. It is fire and brimstone. Some of those guys you do need to scream and yell at, and as long as it's uh beneficial. But there's some kids that you can't, and you got to be able to be calm and explain to them, and make sure that they can understand it. And so that's sort of what my coaching style has evolved from I want to be coached like I used to coach, into if I can understand it, it's my job to make sure you can understand it. And it's sort of evolved over the years into that.
And I think that's where, one-on-one meetings with your players, learning who they are, their family life, and a little bit about them beyond the game will go a long way. Coach, a question that just kind of came up that I'm interested in. So I'm gonna say that you're an expert in OL play. Like, it's something like you are the type that literally you've been doing Hog Football Chat for 11 years. It's something you just enjoy. And so how do you, someone who I personally feel like you have a grasp of good OL play and coaching OL the right way, how do you balance I have a lot of great ways to do things versus I need to find areas of improvement? How do you balance that? And like, how do you seek a continuation to development? How do you continue trying to stay on top of OL play?
I mean, it's a little trial and error. Like there's some times when I've seen some drills and seen some things online, especially, during the chat, even that it's like, oh, that's great. I'm going to try that. And then, you get out to practice and you forget that, your Timmies aren't the Jimmies that are playing at these other schools. And so, you've got to pull back a little bit. I think it's all about finding what drills get the most out of your kids for the scheme you're in. And so, it's sometimes it's doing. I mean, I can tell you when I was at Lake Forest, we were a heavy zone team, and so I would go through the chat at nights and try to find as many double team drills as possible. It all, and some of those were great, and some of those we tried once, and I said, we're gonna cut that from the list. So it's all about trying to just kind of find what fits your guys the best. Find what fits you as a coach the best, because if you have a hard time explaining it and understanding it, the kids aren't going to want to do it. Now, on the flip side of that, if you find a drill that's really, really hard, but you explain it 100% and feel like you understand it, the kids will give it a go. And even sometimes they'll, it could be 3 weeks after, and they'll want to bring it back out because they remember it, or they got one little tidbit from it. So, I think you gotta kind of try to find what you can be good at as a coach, explaining, and find what your kids can be good at running. And sometimes that takes some time to figure it out. But I think I'll say this: if you're a coach, if you're an O-line coach and you're trying, this might rub people the wrong way. If you're trying brand new things in like week 8, week 9, it's probably not a good thing unless it's very, very, very game plan opponent specific. It's probably not going to be a good thing. You're probably struggling a little bit on the O-line.
Sure. When were you at Lake Forest, Coach?
2019 through the 2021 season.
Gotcha. Okay. No, I played at Limestone down in Gaffney, South Carolina, and our OC and OL coach came from Lake Forest, but that was, I think, early. I think they were there 2010, 11, 12. It's Ted Sankson. And,
Ted.
Yeah. So he was my OL coach.
I replaced Ted at Lake Forest because he got he got the Beloit Buccaneers job. Yeah, so I actually replaced Ted, but I actually played against Ted, I think. Or maybe either there was a year where we overlapped in college because he went to Lake Forest and I went to Illinois College. So we actually overlapped for like a year back in the early 2000s. But yeah, Ted's a great guy. I've talked to Ted a bunch. Yeah, he's a good guy.
I see him every year at AFCA. We talk for about an hour every year. So it's good. That's also a small word. But Coach, to add on what you were just saying about the drills, I think it's also important to evaluate the drill that you're trying to use and fit it at the level you're at. So, for example, a drill that we've used since 2017, 2018 is circle chase. And it's just a ball security turnover drill with the offense, defense. And I don't know, a couple months ago, me and Bolt were talking and Jamie was like, man, like we need to find a better way to do this for our kids because we struggle with the trail part. Like they don't understand that we're letting the receiver catch the ball and then we're trying to get the ball out. Like they turn it into a pass deflection drill and we're trying to make it better. And Jamie's like, what if we move the trail line here? And we did it about a month ago, and it's probably the most efficient we've ever seen the drill. And it's the same drill. We haven't changed anything, the objective, the coaching points. We have just moved one of the lines, and that's just thinking outside the box and saying, okay, this is a great drill, but how does it fit our program, our age level a little bit better? And Jamie had a good idea with that one.
Yeah, and I think too, thinking about this episode and bringing Coach on, I think about the new like OL guy that like he's swimming, right? He's in maybe he's taken his first high school offensive line group, and he's like, man, what do I do? And then I also think about maybe a coordinator or head coach that doesn't know a whole lot about OL play to maybe help a guy like that. Like if you don't, like I've been around some really experienced coaches. Like when I was at Kings Mountain, we had super experienced coach in Kevin Cruz. I'm here now with Coach Griffin. He's been coaching for a long time. I've also been in situations where I've had to step in and coach OL as a head coach with really inexperienced coaches. And so talking through this, like what are some like things for maybe that brand new OL guy to do initially when they take that job?
I mean, I've said this for any kind of coach. I think ask questions. Talk to the guys that are around. Talk to the experienced guys. I think again with I'll talk about that piece first, and I'll talk about the second piece. But ask those coaches who've been around. Hey, what would you do in this situation? Hey, what do you think this drill will? Do you think this drill will help benefit us? And then again, go out there and see how it works and listen to the criticism from other coaches. I mean, I can remember my first year coaching long time ago, doing it and being terrible at it, but listening to my head coach at the time, who was my position coach in high school, talk to me about how to make it better. And then him having enough trust, that listening instead of talking will eventually get guys trust, because when you just try to talk and talk and talk and talk, a lot of times you don't know what you're talking about, or like you said, Dustin, it doesn't translate to the level you're coaching. The things that I did the things that we did at the college level aren't going to translate to the high school level. Early on, you've got to find the window that can fit. And so ask those questions of those more experienced, seasoned guys. Understand that you're going to fail. It's okay to fail early, as long as you can fix it and adapt. Because there are some, I mean, there's, like we talked about a bunch already, there's going to be some drills that fall flat on their face that you don't want to run again. Everyone's done it. If there's a coach that says they haven't run a bad drill, then they're a liar. So you're going to have some struggles, but you got to go through those struggles to find your successes. And then on the flip side, the second piece is ask questions anywhere. Go to social media, ask guys questions. I can't tell you how many times people have sent me a message and just, hey, coach, it's my first year. Do you have any suggestions? And so 99.999% of the time, you're going to find a really good coach that helps you with those questions. There are still some jerks in the world that aren't gonna help out or aren't gonna give any value. But you gotta. I've said this before. You got to be able to shut your mouth and open your ears to really be a successful coach, especially nowadays with the landscape that's changing.
Yeah, I think when I was a younger coach, something that I craved or I wanted was, and what I try to do now in any kind of leadership role or coordinator role, head coach role, is I want to define clear expectations. So, for example, if I am the offensive coordinator, if I hire a new OL coach, whether they're in their first year or their 31st year, I'm going to give them a plan on what it like. All right, are we an air raid guy and we're going to throw the ball 90%? He's going to know, hey, man, we better know how to pass set. We better know how to stay square, handle twists. We need to know one-on-one. Like, we need 90% of our indie and what we do, we need to know how to pass block because we're throwing the ball every play. Or is it, hey, we're running this scheme or this game? I think defining clear expectations for what the scheme is and what we expect out of each position group is huge, because that gives a new coach or a newer coach to the system a great place to say, okay, coach wants me to be great at this. Do I already have drills for this if I'm a veteran coach? Or I'm a young coach, I have no clue where to start, but I know this. Coach said we need to know how to have your traditional double teams, your out blocks, your down blocks. We need to know how to pass protect and combo man protection. And I think that's a great starting point. But I have been there as a young coach where it's like, I'm not quite sure what we want out of our OL play, for example. It's like this system's a little different to me, and it could have been better if it was, laid out, hey, this is what I want y'all to be great at.
And there are, like you said, there's some. I've been in a situation a long time ago where I got hired as an O-line coach and came in and kind of knew what we wanted to do, and there was an assistant O-line coach who wanted to try to install the veer and run, block things like we're blocking the veer, and the head coach got rid of him because it was conflicting in what we were doing. Like, just because you have 3 or 4 drills that you've run that you've had success with at school A doesn't mean that they're going to translate to school B. And so you've got to be able to adapt and like you said, ask those questions, find out what you want, find out. And it's if you're with a good staff, if you're with a competent person, if you go to the head coach and say, hey, I'm thinking about doing this and this and this, the great coaches are going to say, that's awesome, go run with it. Or, hey, let's maybe instead of this, let's work this instead. The bad coaches are going to just whatever, go, and there's that, it happens all over the place. There's O-line coaches I talk to still at major colleges that they don't put a lot of emphasis on the O-line play. And it's not the O-line coach's fault. It's from the top down. O-line play is just not that important. We'll make do with our skill guys, and the O-line can just kind of get through. So, I think it's important to ask those questions and take that stuff to head coaches and coordinators to find out so you can get all on the same page.
Yeah, and I think it's easy scapegoat. I mean, I think about offensive line being the scapegoat for a lot of, offensive inefficiencies, just the way like maybe DB play is on the defensive side of the ball. But I think dysfunctional programs are ones that they don't have an onboarding system. So you hire a coordinator and they don't have a system to teach receivers what they need to know for the offense. Same with OL, same with running backs, same with quarterbacks. And so you get like, hey, you go 15 minutes of Indy and then we're going to come together and then run 30 minutes a team. That's what those high school programs probably do. I think a lot of high school programs do that. And what functional and efficient offenses do or systems have is like what you guys are talking about. all right, we do double teams like this. This is what I want our doubles to look like. This is the way the communication should look. These are the types of pulls that we have. And you can build this toolbox for your coach. And then that coach can go in there and then build the toolbox for their players. So maybe a skip pull versus a rip pull or whatever. Maybe it's if you want to do a vertical set, then you need to have some, and that coach isn't really big in a vertical set. You need to have some stuff for him as resources to learn those things. And so thankfully I've been a part of both. And so, but there's always something that I'm giving our coaches from a system standpoint. That way we don't just say, well, hey man, our offensive line ain't no good. So, that's why we're not doing well.
Yeah. Go
I
go
agree,
figure
Bolton.
it out.
Yeah. And it's like, and like Jamie said, I can also hit on that too. Like I've been a part of both. I've worked for coordinators or head coaches that everything's laid out, the expectations there and exactly what's expected. And those typically run pretty smooth. But I've also been worked under people that it worked well, but sometimes it was well, what are we doing? How do we do it? Because it was, hey, we're going to run this, make sure we know how to do this. And it was like, but for example, on the defense side, looking at like safety play or defensive end play, everybody teaches it differently. And it's one thing to say, hey, and I'm going to speak in very base terms, hey, we're running an overfront. Okay, well, coach, how do you want our defensive ends to play in this overfront? Do you want traditional good coaching in terms of we don't run upfield, we stay square, we're at the line, or do we have scheme where we want them to chase? Just little different things. But I think that all comes from the coordinator, the direction of the coordinator. Hey, here's the front we're going to run, and here's how expected to be played. Now, you teach it the technique and drills that you want, but this is what we're trying to achieve from a schematic standpoint. And, and this episode has been so great about development. And I think sometimes that can be a little tougher because you have coaches that wear so many hats. I mean, I know in the past, me and Jamie have worked at the same school at separate times of a smaller 1A, 2A level, and you may be the OL coach, the defensive coordinator, and the linebacker coach because I had to do that hat. And we just want to take time and shout out to our sponsor, Team Builder. Since we're on the topic of development and maximizing your program, let's give them a quick shout out because they have made something very simple for coaches who may happen to wear multiple hats, and you need it a lot simpler. And they have created a program that makes programming for the weight room because let's be honest, in any sport, if the weight room is not your number one priority in the off season, I mean, you're just swimming in circles. So shout out to Team Builder. It's not just about programming. It's about communication, accountability, and they've created a streamlined system to help coaches, whether you wear many hats or you are just down the rabbit hole on strength conditioning. Shout out to them. We have a free trial with the promo code CoachSpeak, so head over and check it out.
Yeah, so now let's get into our next segment, and this is really talking about, building that offensive lineman, like the ideal, brotherhood in the trenches, if you will. So, Coach, kind of talking to that young OL guy, how would you define a great offensive lineman?
Man, it's nowadays they've and even back then a little bit, but now you got to be smart. You got to understand the technique. You got to understand, like Dustin, like you were just talking about, taking it a step further. You got to understand what you're trying to do on offense a little bit. You got to understand if you're a gap scheme, if you're a zone scheme. You got to understand if you're a vertical set, if you're a traditional pass set. So you got to understand all that stuff as a player. What you're trying to do. You got to be sound technical. I think you can get away with being just a big road grader, a big mauler, but if you really want to be successful, if you really, if you're that 6'2", 6'3", 265-pound kid that wants to go play at the next level, you've got to be sound technically. If you're 6'5", 320 and can run, now you can be a little bit more of a bull in a china shop. You can run around and just knock things over, but you got to be understand technically kind of what you're trying to do. You got to be physical. That's just the nature of the beast. That's the nature of the game. Very rarely can you be a non-physical guy at any point. It can't be 90% cerebral, 10% physical. You're just not going to be successful, in my opinion. And nowadays you got to be athletic. You got to be able to move in space. You got to be able to to go down and go chase down a linebacker or chase down a safety, and then turn around and pass block a 235-pound kid who can run a 4.5 40. You got to have that. And then the last bit, I think you have to embrace and love the position. You can't. We always joke. We always talk about, it's always I've made jokes about it too, taking those guys, the tight ends who can't catch and turning them into offensive tackles or offensive guards. They've got to embrace that, because if you don't want to play offensive line, you're not going to play offensive line. That's just how it is. If you don't enjoy what you're doing at that spot, it's going to be a hard time for you having any success with football. So I think if you can take all of those things and kind of mash them together, you're going to find a really good player. And sometimes, like we talked about, I joked about the 6'5", 320. Sometimes those guys are 6'5", 320, but sometimes, more often than not, those guys are 5'10", 180.
Yes.
And you can find some really good high school offensive linemen that are not that big, they're not that natural size, but they play really, really hard, and they play really, really well on the O-line, and enjoy everything about it.
Yeah, Coach, do you have any, like, I know you probably, there's multiple ones if you do a lot of different schemes and plays, but do you have like a go-to drill or go-to progression when you're trying to teach something? So let's say like you're a huge zone guy. Let's just say like the run scheme that you hang your hat on, zone, not that you don't run gap. Do you have like a zone progression on how you teach the kids zone blocking and double teams or whatnot? And it doesn't have to be zone. Do you have any kind of progression that you'd like to share that you like from beginning to end?
So I always start with stance and starts. Like, no matter what, we always work our stance. We always work our starts. And then we'll start working some drive. We'll work some. So I'm just going to give you the whole bit. We always work some drive on a med ball with a med ball guy. And then I'll go with zone. It's been a while since I've coached zone, but I will coach. We'll do, if I've got a 20-minute indie period, half of that's going to be just working double teams, because there are so many double teams that can happen. So I'll line the O-line up, right tackle or left tackle to right tackle. If we have tight ends, I'll put a tight end on both sides, and then I'll just we'll just go right down the line. We'll go tight end, right tackle double team, move down the line, right tackle, right guard, double team, move down the line, right guard, and front side, back side. I think I'll work at as many double teams as humanly possible, especially in zone, because that's what you're going to be good at. And so I want to be so good at that they can do it with their eyes closed. I always joke with the kids. That's probably one of my coachisms. But we want to do it over and over and over and over and over again, so it's second nature, so that it's just when we get to team, when we get to inside run, when we get to group, they can just have their little bit of communication. And sometimes there isn't communication at all. Sometimes they just know and feel it. So we'll work the crap out of that. That's going to be, again, it depends on the scheme, like you said. But even with the gap scheme, we're going to work the crap out of double teams. Truthfully, like, it's going to be, with gap scheme, there's going to be a little bit more down blocks than just true gap schemes. But we'll work that over and over again until it's second nature for them.
Yeah. Is your footwork and technique the same on both combos, zoned and gap? How do you, or is there a different technique in terms of like the steps?
Yeah, it depends on what kind of gap we're doing. So if we're doing duo, it's going to be a very similar double team. It's that vertical, displace the defensive lineman, throw them into the lap of the linebacker. And then obviously for gap schemes, if we're doing more of a true power counter, we're gonna work that front side smash, where we're smashing through gallop technique, whatever you want to call it, where we're smashing through that guy's front side shoulder, trying to get him horizontally displaced now, so that we can kind of get that puller through.
Yeah, the thing I would say that if you're a coach that don't have the resources, time, or the coaches to really specify the difference in the double teams, teach the difference in the attack point of the
Yeah.
guy who's taking that double team. So like understanding if we are running gap and it's going to the backside backer, the angle and the where we're hitting the D lineman to make him go that way versus the vertical double team. And it could be as simple as, hey, we're going to aim through his rib cage on a one that we want going this way, but we're going to aim through his pec, the one that we want going this way. Just and you brought up the Crowther sled earlier. Shout out to Ray Crowther. Like they are one of our sponsors, and they have that new sled that we talked about in earlier episodes that have that. It's the first sled that you can drive at an angle, and there's 3 different colors on it. And they, what I'm talking about is like, you give them the color. I want the sled moving on this color. And it dictates the difference in the type of double teams that you're seeing. But going back to what you say, Coach, a way I found to like to do is I like doing stations, especially if you have 2 OL coaches, and one runs a second level block station and one runs a first level block. So if we're introducing power for the first time, I'm going to work the back blocks and the double teams. He's going to work the pulls and anything that you may do at the second level. You know, if you're in pro and you arc the tight end and kick out with the H or whatnot. But that's a way I've found to try to achieve. Let one coach focus on first level blocks for the scheme. One coach work on the second level blocks for the scheme.
I like that. I guess I've never had an O-line assistant, so that's I wish. But I do that a little bit, but I always like to teach. If I've got 10 guys, if I'm lucky enough to have 10 guys, I want all 10 of those guys to be able to play any position. And so we'll do a little bit of that as well, but I want the starting right tackle and the I want the first guy and the last guy to be able to do everything on the O-line, because I've it's been happened before where you've got to move guys around. I mean, it's, you sometimes your 6th guy, your swing guy, might be your backup right tackle and your backup center. And so you want him to make sure that he can do all those things and be adept at all that stuff. And so I think it's important that I try to teach all the alignment to snap, shotgun snap, under center snap, so that they can do it. Because you never know kind of when an injury goes down. You might have to take that guy. Like I said, your backup right tackle might be better than your backup left guard. So you're going to take him and throw him at left guard. And if he can do it and pull and understand what's going on, you're going to be better for the program.
Yeah. And Coach, I'm trying to pull up the picture real quick of the X-ray sled to kind of show you. So this is just a picture to kind of show it. So it's an angle blocking sled. You can use it one-on-one or with double teams. And basically it comes with the different colors and the different cones. Wow. So like, man, we don't have one yet, but we're working on getting one. We got to our new school. We got in late. We've only been there like 2 or 3 months, but this is great. I like this you can just use it just for tackles. Say you're getting like a 4-eye inside and you need that one-on-one block, and hey, we need him going on this angle or we need him going on this angle. And same thing with the double teams. Now, hey, the blue may be more of a true traditional power counter double team, but the yellow may be more traditional of inside zone or duo. And this sled, I've tried it. I've used it. Sometimes he brings me out there and dresses me up and I shoot some tape on it. But this right here, if I was an OL coach, I would find a way to buy one of these. Like I truly, and I wanted to make sure I shared this with you, man. This is like, and this isn't a paid ad or anything. Like this is Ray Crowther. Obviously they're a sponsor, but like when we're talking OL play, I had to throw this out there because it is a game changer. That's
pretty awesome. No, I'm gonna have to show that to my head coach and beg and plead a little bit.
So yeah, Coach, how do you communicate all that stuff up front? If you guys are more gap scheme where you are, I find myself, we have a lot of communication checks and things like that. How do you teach your communication kind of with your guys?
Yeah, I give them ownership to it. So I let them kind of, obviously I explain as a coach, explain what we're trying to do. But then I let them get their own kind of tweak on things, their own communication bit, because then I've always felt if they have a little bit, if they can have a say in some stuff, communication wise, they tend to remember it more and they tend to want to use it more. And so let them come up with their calls, let them come up, as long as they're not like inappropriate things, but let them come up with their calls, and then just kind of, we do a good job. We've done a good job the last couple of years, and even when I was a head coach, of making things visual, because some guys are visual learners, not practical learners. So making things visual, and then kind of turning that vision into practical work. So making sure that they can understand from the board to the field, so to speak, and then just repping it. The more reps you can do on anything, the better you're going to be. It's the what's the old adage? The man who practices 1,000 kicks or whatever. So I don't know. That's not what it is, but you know what I'm saying.
Close enough, man. I
So
like it.
know
yeah,
exactly
close
what
enough.
you're saying. Yeah.
So making sure that we can practice it a bunch, and then giving them a little bit of ownership to the piece, and a lot of times that ownership translates now. If the young freshmen, sophomores see the older kids doing it, they're gonna do it, and then the next group's gonna do it, and so that becomes tradition. That becomes important to the young guys coming up. So giving them that little piece of ownership, I've found success. Has been successful with the kids.
So you let them come up with their own names for combos. Is that kind of the?
Yep.
Oh,
I'll
cool.
give them
I like
I'll give them a rough draft. I'll say, hey, this is an ace, this is a deuce, this is a tray. But if you guys, if you get up there and you want to call it axe, or you want to call it whatever, go for it. You know what it is. We know what it is. I know what it is when we get on the board, when we get on film. If I say, hey, was this an ace? Yep. But they call it their own thing when they're in the middle of the game, because that's
Yeah.
they're going to remember
I
it.
like that.
Yeah.
I heard the other day I went out to one of my buddy's practices, and the OL coach worked with me last year, and now he's there with my buddy, and I kept hearing him make an Oreo call, and I was like, hey man, what's Oreo? He said, that's double out on the front side of zone. I said, okay. I said, did y'all plan it for because it's double stuff Oreo, double out? He said, and I think he was like, no, it just has 2 O's in it for double out.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, well, then me, because I'm a big boy, I'm like double Oreo, double stuff. You know what I mean? But it was just cool because the kids have such creative minds, and they're the best for coming up with signals. Hey guys, we have a new word or a new play. I don't know a signal. What do y'all think? And and if they come up with something, there might be a new trend or a new way, but no. But Coach, this has been great. I think it's time to move into our final segment, one of our favorites, called Rapid Fire. We have a couple questions we want to ask you just to kind of get your opinion, and I'll let Jamie kick it off.
All right, Coach. So I might already know this one just with the blood on your face, but pancake block or perfect pass set?
Perfect pass set.
Oh, okay. That's surprising. Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so I gotta give you a backstory now. I was 195-pound offensive lineman. I wasn't pancaking anybody. And so for me, I would much rather see a perfect pass set than a pancake. I think probably gonna get taken out to the woodshed for this one. I think a pancake block is a little overrated. While I like seeing guys on the ground, if you watch film these days, I get arguments with kids all the time because they'll take the shoulder pads and throw them, and that was a pancake. No, it was not. That is not a pancake block. And so sorry. So I would much rather see a perfect pass set.
That's awesome. And we had an offensive lineman named Jack Schultz when I was at Cannon, right tackle, 195-pound kid, played both sides of the ball, never gave up a sack. Mm-hmm. He's so I mean, I love that. I mean, he had some pancakes here and there, but man, they're so valuable. Athletic tackles, man, that don't give up sacks. I agree. I agree with that. That's cool.
I think it's easier to teach a pancake block than it is a perfect pass set. Mm-hmm. And I think it's easier to do. Mm-hmm. It does.
Yeah.
And Coach, I'll be honest with you. I'm kind of, I lean what you're saying. I think pancake blocks can be overrated, because they're not, to me, if you'd pancake a guy in a double team, well, that should have happened. There's 2-on-1.
Right, exactly.
And they're sitting there in the gap.
The only time I would specifically get happy about pancake blocks are 1-on-1 first level, and you drive them off the ball 4 to 5 yards and you punish them. That 100%. Everything else is overrated. You said,
the belly slide. You get the belly slide over
the grab.
Or the face
and the bad part is there are camps out there that are glorifying tip tosses, and I'm like, that's not a pancake. That's a hold.
No.
They're going to
judo.
Yeah,
Krav Maga.
Yeah.
Coach, what would you say is your favorite OL drill of all time?
Oh man. I like double unders on a med ball, man. I think you can get a lot done with that. You can incorporate a stance, a start, and a drive all in with one piece of equipment, and do it a zone step, a reach step, a down step, all sorts of steps. So I think that's a super underrated and super important drill.
I think we're going to start incorporating that in the weight room with our OL when we have certain plyometric pieces, especially in season. I'll tell you too, and this is another little shout out. We're going to do that with the tsunami bar, and so
Oh,
they'll have
nice,
like,
yeah.
and then so that thing is just bouncing, bouncing, bounce. It's just a little different force, but I think you can do all your double under work with that too. And I mean, you can think about your biceps. Like, I mean, that's a lot of stuff. But
There's
yeah,
well,
we're going to
there's
do that.
yeah, there's so
It
many
works on the little
resources out there.
muscles. Yeah, yeah.
Like med balls are great, like for on-field stuff. Tsunami bars are great for in the weight room.
Yeah.
And then Ray Cruther even has like the rack attack pad that hooks up to each rack. Now,
Yeah.
you got to take them down and put them up there, but it's like being able, it's kind of serves as the med ball in the weight room. You don't have to have someone holding it, it's there on the rack. But I just love that there are so many different avenues you can take and you have options on how to achieve these things. There's no absolutes, but yeah, Jimmy, you want to ask the last one?
Yeah. All right, coach. You're a Wisconsin guy. I'm a Green Bay fan. Always have been. Went up there one year. It was 2015 in January. Watched the Packers play the Cowboys in the playoff game, and that's the Des Bryant catch,
Is
no
that the Des
catch.
Bryant game? Oh man,
Yes, I
tough.
was at the game. We drove from we're right outside of Charlotte, 15 hours straight on Friday night at midnight, and got there at like 5 p.m. Saturday. Woke up and watched the game at 12 Central Time, and I was out there, man. It's like 20 degrees, and so I'm like, man, this is pretty cold. But we get out there to Green Bay, and it is we're tailgating, and all the accents and stuff are like, hey, these guys are from South Carolina. You guys come over here and have these, they're like all happy. And so I was like, man, are you guys like, is this cold for you? He's like, nah, man, this is warm, so
Yeah.
being where you are, do you like the cold weather? Their cold weather is like 0 degrees apparently. Would you rather coach in a cold weather game or a hot weather game?
I hate the cold. I would much rather now. Okay, me as a person, I hate the cold. Me as a coach, up here, up here when it's hot, the first like 2 weeks of the season, you got cramps like for 10 players, 10, 15 players are cramping because of the heat. So I would much rather I coach in a colder game, but as a human being, I hate the cold. Give me hot 10 times out of 10.
What about you, Dustin?
So we, as a coach, cold 100%. Like I love a good like Belichick cut off hoodie, like in the cold. I was just with maybe a long sleeve shirt underneath. But
Yeah.
As a player, being a center, we played a game in Kentucky one time, and it was like 17 degrees. Like it was the coldest I'd ever played in, and being a center, I couldn't feel my hand.
Right.
Like I had a hand warmer, and when we would get in the huddle, I'd have to put my hand in my right guard's armpit. All jokes aside, because my hand was so cold, I couldn't grip the ball. So shout out Grant Wachter, who lives in Summerville, South Carolina. Appreciate the armpit, brother.
There you go.
Man, I think my most miserable moments are on the sideline when it's cold. Like miserable. Like I hate
Well,
that. I'd rather.
it depends. It depends the cold. If it's like 35 but sunny, that's okay. Now on the flip side, if it's like 50 but rainy, that's brutal. That's like worse than anything else. So it depends the cold. Because again, I was a center too, Dustin. So anytime my hand was cold or wet or something, it was like in my mind, I was always like, "Oh crap, this is gonna be bad."
Those
But
dudes are tough up north, man.
Yeah.
I don't see how they do it.
Rain and wind, that's what really makes it cold. I don't think it's the temperature. It's the rain and wind. That's really, and this year I'm going back up in the box for the first time in 3 or 4 years. And it's always a little chillier up there in that box. So we'll see.
Well, good deal, Coach. Well, man, we're so thankful you were on. Best of luck with Hog Football Chat moving forward, and with your family. I know you got a little one, and so that's exciting. But So, guys, if you're interested, just reach out to Coach. I'm going to follow the thread there. Also, Team Builder, remember 30-day free trial with the Coach Speak promo, and Pro Quick Draw, also 7-day free trial in there. And again, our 4-film mastery toolkit is there too with a promo code Coach Speak. Check those items out, and we'll look forward to seeing you guys in the next one.
Thanks. See y'all.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for tuning into the Coach Speak podcast. If you're interested in being a guest speaker on the show, we'd love to hear from you. Email us at coachspeakpodcast1@gmail.com. And if you have a question for our Q&A segment, don't forget to submit it through the form in the episode description. We appreciate your support, and we look forward to seeing you in the next episode.